Okay, Short Issues Podcast. We are here up close with not a gubernatorial candidate today, but somebody a little more local. This is Nicole Acle. Is that's correct pronunciation of your name or no?
Acle.
Ackley. Okay, I meant to
It's
ask you that.
Cuban. It needs to have that little accent at the end.
Ackley. Okay, so it has like a little teal day above the
Yes.
Andrews.
Yeah.
Okay, Ackley. Okay, my apologies. Nicole Ackley running for 37B from Comico County. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Very good, very good. Glad I can get somebody a little more local up to talk about, some real down in the Eastern Shore mud type of issues. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, so why don't you just get off by introducing yourself to us, people who are not familiar with you at all. Who are you? Where are you from? And why are you running for 37B?
Well, I am currently a seated Wicomico County councilwoman. I was appointed back in 2019, and then I ran for election in 2022. Wicomico County District 2 is the largest rural, geographically right next to Dorchester County area. And well, most importantly, let me back up and say I'm a wife and a mother of 3 children. So I'm blessed with that. I've been on the council for 2 years, and I've been able to really navigate through local government and see how that can bridge with state government to help the citizens of the Eastern Shore. I was appointed to the Critical Area Commission by Governor Hogan, which has been a very eye-opening experience and has allowed me to advocate for environmental issues that are truly important to this area. I've been involved in several nonprofit agencies, and that's really how I got into the political realm, is just having these community connections and being an advocate for what the citizens need.
Okay. Could you give an example? You just said that you were part of an environmental or planning commission for Governor Hogan appointed you to. What was that
Yes,
again?
the Critical Area Commission. We look at all all the areas in the state. And if there's any type of development planned in those critical areas or the limited development areas, we review the plans and the mapping for that to make sure that they're in compliance with our environmental laws.
Okay, okay. Could you say some things while you've been part of Wacomico County Council? Like, what are some things that you've been a part of that are proud of you, that are emblematic of your brand?
I think, my biggest accomplishment that I feel, because Wicomico County was so far behind the 8 ball, was with broadband and being able to bring rural broadband to this most rural area. During COVID, we had children that could not log on to do school, and for their education, they were driving to McDonald's in the parking lot to be able to access school. So I'm very proud of that accomplishment. Also, being able to advocate for our agriculture and the watermen of the Eastern Shore. We've had some different issues that have come up, and I think there is a there's I see agriculture and watermen as the true environmentalists of Maryland.
Okay. So, well, on that note, a problem that some of the environmentalists have with the poultry and the agriculture farms is that there's a lot of non-compliance for MDE regulations. There's a lack of enforcement of, in particular, the poultry farms. Their runoff of chicken poo and other chicken waste. And I believe that agricultural farmers offend less, but they have like chemical runoff and such like that. Um, yeah, what is your position on the enforcement or the lack of enforcement up to this point of certain MDE regulations on this type of thing?
So I see how that could be the perception of some, but quite honestly, more of our regulations with the critical area is to monitor developments that are dumping into the bay. Uh, That's probably our largest non-compliant issue. There's some concerns with agriculture and watermen, but I found that they truly want to protect the bay. They want to do the right thing. Whereas when reviewing plans for the Baltimore County, if something's in the critical area, we have a more difficult time getting developers into compliance.
What was you said at the beginning critical area runoff? Is that what does that mean?
So critical area runoff is when the critical area is the limited development area that is it bumps right up to the bay or to the water. So when you have any type of critical area like waterfront developments, that would be a good example. If you have these waterfront developments, you're going to have critical area runoff. So there's stormwater, any type of rainwater drainage.
Okay, so that kind of actually very, very conveniently bleeds us into another issue that we're talking about at the moment, which is stormwater. We have a lot of it right now.
Yes.
I mean, I know here in St. Michael's, I haven't been into town, but I have a feeling that the Crab Claw and other harbor points are probably underwater. What's I mean, I'm not in Salisbury. What's the situation right now in Salisbury? Are you guys experiencing a lot of flooding?
Very similar. Very, very similar. A friend of mine had sent me pictures from St. Michael's, so it's very similar. And we've worked at the county level to really try to keep these ditches clean and make sure that there is the best runoff as possible for drainage. But one of the things that we kind of hit at a standstill on the state level is a lot of the drainage pipes that are either under private property, private land, that are not able to drain, and then follows to cause flooding. So really, I think my plan moving forward as the 37B delegate would be to bring some type of incentive to have private landowners maintain their drainage. And I think with that, that would help maintain all of our roads.
Okay. So are you saying, like, for example, right now, like in Salisbury, like the East and West Street, West Main Street, all those harbor areas are probably like Fitzwater Street, for example, are probably experiencing like underwater like type scenarios.
They are, but even more so, I think, in the rural community that's closest to the water. So Whitehaven, Tyaskin, Bivalve, it's the flooding has just continually eroded our roads and lowered them. And so that's where we have the biggest flooding issue.
Okay. So are you saying, for example, if you want to put the issue onto private landowners, are you saying, for example, if they do some type of infrastructure upgrade on their properties, they'll be recipients of tax credits, for example, for getting that?
I would be open to something like that. I think that we have property owners that are willing to maintain any type of ditch or drainage pipes under their property, but it's expensive. I mean, it's not something that the average person can go out and pay a backhoe to have cleaned out. So if citizens would want to do that, I think giving them some type of tax incentive or tax credit for maintaining that would be a good route to go.
Okay.
Now, of
Okay.
course, we'll have some that don't want that responsibility, don't want to do that, or are not able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's why the tax credit incentivizes certain
Mhm.
behaviors, you know. Um, okay. So getting back to the critical area, the critical risk area, you're saying that a lot of runoff is coming from these developments that are run along the water. Is that correct?
So that's mainly what we review. We have had very little issues with agriculture or watermen. It seems to be somewhat of a perception that is a large pollutant of the bay when you have more of for example, Baltimore County had a septic failure that went back right back into the bay. And so things like that, or waterfront developments that don't have a buffer between them. Anne Arundel County has just revised their critical area code to allow for less impervious surface when a development is, I guess, redeveloped is what you would call it. Once something's built, they redevelop it.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying, okay. So, okay. Well, getting back to the critical risk areas, are you saying, for example, to mitigate the effects of future flooding, that like floodplains and flood parks would be things that you're in favor of? Because it seems like if we develop these areas that are bleeding into the bay, they're gonna pollute into the bay, but also we're losing soft ground that can absorb lots of storm water. Are you in favor of floodplains and flood parks?
I've never heard the term floodplain or flood park, but I think I know what it means.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's somewhat of a buffer between, am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Um,
Comico has a lot of like wetland areas like that.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, a lot of wetland areas. So that would be a buffer, a 300-foot setback, something to that effect. That would be a good buffer between the critical area and the development.
Yeah, yeah. I was only using that language because I was looking at the hazard mitigation and resilience plan, and I think that was some of the language they used, or just some of the reporting about it.
Well, we have this, there's a lot of environmental jargon. And
Mhm.
so it kind of ebbs and flows depending on what commission you're talking to. So I just wanted to make sure I completely understood.
Yeah, no, no. That's why it's important to define terms like critical risk area and stuff like that because there is a lot of lofty jargon that people don't understand.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so that's flooding. Okay. What's your position on the Climate Solutions Act? Have you been following that? I mean, it's on the governor's desk right now. Um, yeah.
That is the constitutional amendment to the environment.
The Climate Solutions Act, it's doing a bunch of things. Let me open a link for that.
I feel like they're changing daily with amendments and with
Yeah, yeah. So the
it keeps
last,
coming back and forth. So
yeah, so the last I heard, it's making buildings use electric power. Although I think that Republicans have vied for that not to be the case. So there will be new buildings that are built that aren't necessarily gas or electric powered, for example. Um, yeah.
I mean, I think when we can use alternative sources of energy, whether it be solar, and it's appropriate for that zoning,
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage it. But I think when you're whenever you're taking up either valuable farmland or you're taking up something that is very costly to a business owner or even to a government structure to convert to that, is it really is you have to weigh that cost benefit. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I see that. I don't know
Okay.
if I'm not 100% that I see that in the bill.
Okay. Okay. Um. All right. Yeah, another Comico issue. Another Comico issue that I've heard about is that you guys have a lot of with private wells and stuff like that. There's a lot of groundwater poisoning going on, or
Yes.
has been in the past. Could you describe that issue and what you're in favor of to resolve it, whatever the case is?
So Comico County does not have county water or sewer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're the only, maybe one of few that is left in the state that has that. And unfortunately, we have come to a point where homeowners can no longer have that. They can no longer have private wells or private septic because it's just they have no more drain field area.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gotten to some unsafe conditions, and especially in Whitehaven. Whitehaven is right on the water, and there have been nitrates found in their wells and in other pockets of District 2. My plan for that was to move forward with county water and sewer. And how we looked at that specifically with District 2, because this is where we have the most issues with flooding and with our septic systems failing, is doing more of smaller discharge stations or possibly tying to our already existing infrastructures. Like Sharptown already has a wastewater treatment. So
Mm-hmm.
how can we tie in areas surrounding that to make them to bring them into compliance with MDE?
So you're basically saying providing the option for
Yes.
wastewater treatment hookups for these private wells and such. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and we do have some state funding for the areas that are considered a public health risk. So I would really like to take advantage of those. I know there are some citizens that don't want county water or sewer, and I respect that they don't want that, but I would like them to have the option, to have the area to have an option if that's what they want, they're able to hook up to it.
Okay. Okay. I've been looking at your Facebook page a little bit. I just want to see like what issues you're posting about. It seems like you're very much in favor of well, you're very glad that kids are back in school and they don't have to wear masks
Yes,
anymore.
yes.
Okay. Um, this is a question I have. For children that have like comorbidities, or even if they don't have comorbidities, if they have elderly grandparents at home or family with comorbidities, do you support kids that don't want to go to school with a bunch of unvaccinated, unmasked kids to be able to continue Zoom classes at home so that they don't, run the risk of being a vector of disease for themselves or for anyone in their home?
Absolutely. I think that it's really up to the parents for what they choose. If they feel like it's not safe for their child or their physician feels it's not safe for the child. Previously, we had home and hospital. And so there were already online courses for children who were unable to attend school for medical reasons. I think the county has, I apologize. I don't know exactly what Talbot County school system has done for online learning.
Hmm.
I know what Comico has done, and we have created another platform for students to be more engaged. And I think that's the progression of technology. Like I said, previously, children who weren't able to come to school for health reasons, it was more of an online where you kind of just watched the video and did the questions. And now it has progressed into more of interactive where they can zoom into the classroom. And
Hmm.
I think that's healthy for any child to have engagement rather than just watching a video.
Yeah, so I don't have a kid in school, so I don't know what the case is. Maybe this is already the case in some areas, but in Wacomico, for example, that's not being offered currently. They're not doing a Zoom class along with just a live class, for
No, they
example.
are. They are
Oh, they
currently,
are?
yes,
Okay.
they have funding now to do that, which is, I think, that's always been something I had hoped to see would evolve more, the home and hospital model of learning. And I think just with technology and if there was any good that could possibly come out of COVID, it
Hmm.
has opened the world of technology, especially with education.
Yeah, true, true. I think there's also a lot of people who used to go to, like offices that don't have a lot of walk-in people, but people have to physically go to this office every day to do work that they can do at home. They don't have to
Yes.
necessarily do that anymore.
Mhm.
Okay. So more on COVID stuff. I believe in the pipeline they're talking about a vaccine for, I think it's 5 to 10 year olds coming
Mhm.
into effect.
Mhm.
Would you be in favor of mandating that for school age kids in Wacomico County?
So I'm not a physician. My husband's a physician,
Hmm.
but I really believe that this is something that we need to put in the hands of the family's healthcare provider.
Hmm.
If they feel as though they need to have that vaccine, that's between them and their healthcare provider. I don't think that the government should be legislating our healthcare decisions. And there's many people who can't get the vaccine for multiple reasons. And so I don't want to, I'm very hesitant to jump into that realm because it's a healthcare that I'm not an expert in.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was looking at Maryland vaccination rates, and Wacomico County vaccination rate, for example, is like 55% or something like that.
Mhm.
Kind of on the low side
Yeah.
in state totals. I was just wanting to think like, what can you do to incentivize people to engage in this behavior to get vaccinated so that they're not disease vectors for other people? Are you in favor of any policies like that?
I mean, I think health education is always a benefit. We've done quite a bit of outreach and I've helped our health department. I'm on the chair of our local healthcare commission.
Hmm.
And so I've done several short videos for Facebook, advertisements, just to provide citizens with accurate information for them to make the best choice, to talk to their healthcare provider and make the best choice for them. I don't necessarily think it's a legislative. We have allocated more money to our health department for them to do community outreach. And I think it's important for many disease states, for diabetes, for obesity, along with COVID.
Okay. Um, all right. So yeah, so something else I saw on your Facebook was there's this book. I think the news is that it is banned now. It's called Some Boys Aren't Blue.
Mhm.
Uh, um could you describe why you're in favor of this book being removed from Wacomico public schools?
So my children, I have a daughter in college,
Mhm.
and then I have a high schooler and a middle schooler. They have not experienced that book, or they have not been read that book. But I really think that that's something for the parents to decide. I don't know if you listen to the audio of the book, but it's pretty graphic. It's pretty graphic.
Mhm.
I really wouldn't want that. I didn't want to read it myself, and so I don't want my children engaging in it. They're under the age of 18. Um,
Right. So, I mean, just for people listening, the book describes it's a visceral description of a gay sex scene. Well, the book itself is about like a young black man who's a teenager and sort of discovers that he's gay eventually, and it's kind of about his realization of that. And then there's a scene in the book where it does describe a gay sex scene, which the
Very explicit.
Delmarva Parent Teacher Coalition, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. The Delmarva Parent Teacher Coalition made an angry presentation about it to the Comico Public School Board or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, so from what I understand about this book is that it's in the library. It's not like being taught in a classroom, but it's available for 14 to 17 year olds, which I believe is the age that they're learning about sex education and stuff like that. So, my question is that you've said that the book is obscene, and it could be obscene, but
It's
I
very
want
graphic.
it's very graphic. It's a visceral anatomical description. But like, if there are if they're learning about heterosexual sex, for example, in sexual education, shouldn't books that describe heterosexual sex in the same type of way also be banned for being obscene from the library?
I think if a parent wants their child to read it, that's their choice. But if a parent doesn't want their child to read it, it shouldn't
Well,
be made available. I mean, I don't think pornography should be made available to children. I just don't. I don't, there's a reason why we don't have, Hustler magazine in our public schools.
yeah,
And after listening to this book is very similar to that. It was very graphic and somewhat disturbing to myself. So I think parents need to have a choice in that.
right. Well, it sounds like by removing it from the library, which is I think has happened now according to their
The school
website.
library.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but by removing it, you're kind of taking the choice away from people to read it because it's not available for them
Minors.
anymore.
We're taking the choice from minors.
Okay,
Minors. So
okay,
not if parents want to give it to their child to read, they can still do that.
okay. Well, I don't know exactly the contents of every public school library, but I'm just assuming that logically, if they're being taught sex education, there's probably books in the library that describe sex education, probably for heterosexual sex.
I
Maybe in a
don't,
bit.
it's not really sex ed. This book was not sex education. I mean, I don't, have you read it?
No, I haven't. I've just
I would.
I saw the excerpts of it, and
Yeah, it's definitely not health education.
well, the thing that I mean, I think if you take one thing out of context, you can spin it any sort of way. I know a lot of women who are married to gay men, you know what I mean, who don't know who a lot of gay men who are in the closet because they didn't have narratives available to them like this, that being gay and a teenager is a valid identity, and that you can read a book to identify with that, but also to know that what you're feeling and what you're thinking isn't necessarily like a bad. You're not wrong for feeling the way that you do. Um, it just seems like there's two arguments being posited forward by the Delmarva Parent Teacher Coalition. Is that one on the one hand it's obscene, but on the other hand it kind of seems like what they're mad about is not the obscenity, it's the gay part. Is kind of the dissonance I'm picking up from it.
I mean, the gay part is the first I've ever heard. I've never heard any citizens say that, or that's, I mean, the first time I'm hearing it is from you. I've never heard that. It was more so the sexually explicit content
Right, right,
in the
right.
book.
So I'm saying if okay,
You're looking at more of a homosexual heterosexual. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
yeah, yeah, no, I feel like that there's two arguments being put forward by the ban on the book. One is that it's obscene, but I feel like the subtext to it is that it's obscene because it describes homosexual sex. And that's not necessarily from you. Again, your comment is fairly neutral about this, but when I watched the video of the teachers parading around, it very much, especially the guy at the end saying that they're eroding our rights to do this, to teach our kids this and that. Like it seems like there's like this conspiracy isms like wrapped up in the book. You know what I mean? There's like that this is part of like some sort of liberal dark agenda to sexualize our kids or something like that. That's the vibe I got.
I don't know. I didn't get that
Okay.
vibe, but
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't, I just think it's, we don't put Hustler magazine in our public school library,
Okay.
regardless of what gender it's speaking to.
Okay. I'm just saying that, like, for example, if there was books that described heterosexual sex in the library to the same degree, you would also be in favor of banning those books for the same reason.
Absolutely. If a book was that sexually graphic and explicit, and there have been other books that have been taken out of the library because they're minors. You can't subject minors. Minors can't have access to this, similar to buying pornographic magazines.
Okay. Okay. All right. So there's that. Um. Okay. So last year, Johnny Mouts, who is running for Senate now, he put forward a bill in the Maryland House to audit our election for 37B, based on the pretense that I guess he thought that there was some election tampering or something that happened in our district. Are you of the opinion that any such thing like that happened in our election for the presidential election for 2020?
I've never had that conversation with Delegate Mouse. I didn't know that he did that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what his intent was behind it. I know there's been different issues with the how 37B is structured, that some in Dorchester want single member representation. So I can't really, I don't know what his intent was.
Yeah, well, we can only speculate about that, but I mean, to make it a short question, are you under the impression that there was any election tampering or falsification, anything like that that happened in our election in 2020?
I mean, there are some things that allude to that. Do I have proof or evidence? No, I don't. We never had an election audit that I am aware of. So I can't really, I can't formulate an opinion on something I don't have evidence on.
Okay. Um, so are you of the opinion that Joe Biden legitimately won the 2020 presidential election?
So, I mean, again, we didn't have an election audit with proof showing that, so I can't really formulate an opinion unless I have evidence in front of me.
So if there's no evidence of something going on, that's not evidence that it happened, correct? So did Joe Biden win the 2020 presidential election in the absence of evidence?
He's currently our president.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what else to say. I don't know.
Well, by what
He's our
means did he
president,
by
so
what means did he become the president?
by the election, you're elected
Yeah,
into
yeah, yeah.
president. But you're asking me if I think that the election was fraudulent, right? But we've
Mhm.
never had an election audit to present material to make that determination.
Okay. Um. Okay. So do you? All right. All right. Well, do you have like any other issues that you wanted to talk about that you wanted to put forward to people?
Yeah, I think it's really protecting our watermen in our agriculture area because it's clearly the economic backbone of the Eastern Shore. So really, working on that to make sure that we stay focused on the real environmental issues. I think transparency in government is paramount. I think that we have had issues where that has not happened. And really speaking on behalf of the people, not having my own personal agenda or having something personal to gain as an elected office, but speaking to what is important to you, right? What is important to you that you would like to see in your area?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Important to me that I like to see in my area. I would like to see more employment for watermen seasonally. That's kind of like the dark thing in the room for the watermen is that a lot of the problems that they face are seasonal unemployment and uncertainty about whether they're going to be able to harvest on oyster reefs and such like that are made by the state. So I think more employment options are a very good idea for watermen. I think the state should also invest in some green infrastructure stuff, and maybe those can be jobs programs for such unemployed watermen. Um,
What type of green infrastructure?
solar, the offshore wind in Ocean City. Yeah, that type of thing.
Okay.
Is do you have any comments about that?
So I think, yeah, I think solar definitely has its place.
Mhm.
I think that there are spots that would be appropriate for it, and there's some spots that are not appropriate for it.
So in Comico County, do you have any different visions as to what alternative energy sources could be utilized?
Well, I really think it depends on the local zoning, right? There's different zoning. And one thing with Maryland I found is it not only an extremely diverse Eastern Shore, it's a very diverse state. So issues that they may be having in Baltimore may not necessarily be the same issues that we're having here. And so looking to see, like, I mean, I appreciate listening to what's important to you
Mhm.
and how you think they can play out. And that's what I plan to do as a state delegate, is to reach out to citizens to see what's important to them and come to a solution that we can all move forward with.
Yeah, yeah, and my claim is that I think if we put more money into new renewable energy stuff, infrastructure projects, those are also jobs programs and
Mhm.
stimulus for local working class people. So I see that. Another issue, housing is extremely unaffordable, especially here in Talbot County. What do you have any? Do you have any policies that you're in favor of to make houses more affordable for just working class people instead of like we have this total like second home community over here now. We have communities of people that aren't here most of the time, and I think that that's in some way a detriment to the economy because these homes are just taking up space by people that aren't there and not putting money into the local restaurants, into the local businesses, stimulating the economy. But working people live here and work here and can't afford homes because housing is in very much an asset bubble. So, yeah, do you have any opinions about that?
Again, back to the local government and their zoning, I'm not quite sure specifically how Talbot County zoning works. I know in Wycomico, we have given different tax structures for more development throughout the county. And you can have property tax credits for things like that. Um, but I'm not sure with Talbot County zoning, or what is their overall planning map?
Oh, a good question. I don't know the gritty details of that one. But in general, like there's a very finite amount of housing available, especially here in St. Michael's, where it's mostly water.
Yeah.
I, I
Mhm.
think Talbot County actually has the most water of any county, waterfront of like any county in America or something like that. I heard recently. So yeah, I think about that. Like I pass by houses every day when I walk my dogs where I know that these people are here like one weekend a month. You know what I mean? They have
Mhm.
this like 3 acre property that's just unoccupied, and meanwhile, myself as well as like other young people and just working class people just can't afford anything, so that these people can buy this home and then just never be here. you know. So I find that problematic.
So I think it sounds like, and I'm taking a guess at this one. I can't, I don't know what Talbot County's planning is, their development planning, but it sounds like maybe that it's developed that way so that
Mhm.
there's not as many dense housing developments in that area.
Yeah, it's much more bigger tracts of property out here than it is. Like Easton, for example, has lots of new housing developments all the
Hmm.
time. And maybe for example, have you been following the Lakeside issue in Trap?
I've been following it. I don't know the details on it,
Yeah, it's a pretty long story. It's like
but I
20
would love for you to
years.
share them with me.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not going to name the resolution bill numbers because that's too complicated. But essentially, the town commission has decided that they will hook up the first X amount of homes, like first 100 to 500 homes, to the existing trap wastewater treatment plant, which is a little bit behind in its own updating of ENR, which is something nitrate runoff,
Mhm.
nitrate runoffs. Yeah, so that's already the trap town wastewater treatment is already kind of behind code, and it's been polluting pretty ugly into La Trappe Creek. Um, La Trappe Creek looks pretty ugly right now. It's like a lot of I wouldn't go in there. You know what I mean? I
You wouldn't
wouldn't
go
eat.
fishing in there.
No, yeah, you'd be poisoning yourself. So people are concerned that we're hooking up more homes to an already overburdened wastewater treatment plant for a period of anywhere from 6 months to perhaps even 4 years.
Mhm.
And so this has been decided. They voted yes that they're going to continue with this operation. Um, yeah, and a lot of stakeholders are just not happy about that. That La Trappe Creek is just going to get hit even harder by even more wastewater.
So I think this is something that really the state can help assist with best technology or BAT systems. It would, and I don't know the details on all the specific nuances of this project, but we have had issues like that in Comico with different developments, and working with MDE to bring best technology, and that also has funds that are allocated for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure where the county, if they have pursued that route or not.
Are you saying um, requesting more funds from the federal government to or to give subsidies to trap to upgrade their wastewater treatment?
No, so MDE has certain allocated amounts from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation to help these smaller plants or discharge units with best technologies or BAT systems to the most environmentally safe way to dispose of waste.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so that actually this is an interesting point because also I don't know if you've seen this, but the Valley Proteins chicken farm, which is in Linkwood, um, is undergoing a lawsuit from Shore Rivers, Dorchester Concerned Citizens for Clean Water, or something like that. Yeah, so Valley Proteins, if you don't know, has is kind of one of the systemic abusers of poultry pollution. They have a really outdated wastewater treatment plant that they've just never upgraded with, and there's not really an enforcement mechanism um, to make them upgrade their wastewater treatment plant because we only have 3 MDE inspectors in the whole state at the moment, and one of them is a desk job, so we really only have 2. So that's why these citizen coalitions have finally have enough evidence. They've flown drones over Valley Proteins and shown like the gray black sludge that they eject into the Transquacking River. So if we have these public-private partnerships with our poultry industry like this, do you agree that the state should be giving them subsidy or at least making them enforce upgrading their wastewater treatment with the subsidies that we give them?
So I did do some research on that particular, because we had a conversation at the critical area commission meeting on that. Um, and from my understanding, this has been going for some time. This is not a new issue.
No,
And
not at all.
so
It's
it's very
long.
disappointing to see that there is a regulatory arm of MDE that not only at the state level, but your local health department has an arm of the environment. And so I would really like to see more regulation. I don't want to say more regulation, but more follow-up to ensure that they are applying to the standards and the code. It seems like that has not been done in a very long time.
It's the this is coming from a report by the Environmental Protection Project, and basically in this, the report is called "Blind Eye to Big Chicken," um,
Mhm.
and like you were saying that there is regulations around this stuff, but there's just like no enforcement mechanism whatsoever. It's like a really we expect them to regulate themselves in good faith, which they don't do. And I think the report itself said that 86% of poultry farms were systemically polluting, breaking MDE regulations, not just through their runoff stuff, but a lot of times they just weren't keeping tight paperwork about what they had done and what they hadn't done. Um, and even if they do receive fines, the Delmarva Chicken Association person said. Um, Basically to the effect that this is just the cost of doing business. Like these fines that they get are like $1,500 fines for X amount of pollution, and it's like slap on the wrist type of stuff, and they rarely even get those. So I mean, they just view it as like getting a speeding ticket, for example. And that again, that's my characterization. You can do your own research, but
I'm going to. When we get off this call, I'm going to, because it
there
really has sparked my interest.
yeah, no, I did my first episode about this, and Jeremy Cox and Tim Wheeler from Bay Journal have done a lot of reporting about Valley Proteins in particular. So,
Well, and there, I mean, there is something to be said that is true. I think we tend to focus a little bit too much on our smaller farms and not the big industry. I think with the chicken waste disposal, we're kind of at the breaking point in Maryland. We have to find an alternative. Like we can't kick this can down the road any longer.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be something done. What that something is, I don't know, but I think we need to figure something out. And I think it's bigger than just Talbot County, Dorchester County, Comico County, Caroline. I think it's the entire state, because chicken waste is not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are definitely at that breaking point where we have to do something.
Well, right, and I would think that this is an area in which watermen and agricultural strongly clash, because this
Mm.
excess nitrous and phosphorus runoff create dead zones in the bay, bad for aquatic life, bad for watermen. So you know, I think the solution is that we need to enforce the MDE regulations much more strongly. Stop relying on these people to self-regulate themselves and to give them fines that mean something. Is what do you think about that?
I think they definitely need to, with these larger companies and these disposals, like I said, the chicken waste is not going anywhere. So we need to find a best technology to start disposing of this and help bring them up to code. And it's saddening to me to hear that this has been happening for some time and there's never been a penalty, or as you said, it's the cost of doing business. That's very disappointing to hear. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like something on the state level, working with MDE to find best technologies for disposal. Because and I know in our environmental department here, they're very short staffed. They can't hire anyone. So are they doing it intentionally, or can they just not hire anyone? Or what's the disconnect there? But long-term solution is we need to find a way to dispose of this.
Yeah. So getting back to what you just said there, it seems like Hogan has cut a lot of state jobs. In particular, I think some MDE people have been cut, and we're not just seeing this here. But I mean, for example, the sewage treatment plant in Baltimore has now been taken over by MDE because of their systemic problems that they have with not upgrading whatever wastewater treatment they have. There was a case a little while ago over in St. Mary's County where there was a sewage spill in whichever river, and some watermen were harvesting oysters from the river. Some people ate the oysters and got very sick. Yeah, and I guess it was the case in that where it wasn't communicated to the watermen from the county or whoever is doing the communication that this pollution is going on and you should not be harvesting oysters from this river. Um, but I say all this to say that there's kind of like a systemic problem with communicating or
Mhm.
enforcement, you know what I mean, in multiple areas, not just the chicken farms, but the wastewater treatment plants, lack of inspectors, lack of enforcement. And so I say all that to say that I think that the solution is that MDE needs to rehire staff to do enforcement, to do inspections, to check this stuff, and to put forward fines that mean something.
No, I mean, I agree. The thought there's only 3 employees that are field inspectors and one's a desk job. I mean, like I said, I know talking to our local health department, we're down to one environmental specialist and the supervisor is looking to retire. And so, talking to our health officer, what's the issue? Is it that you can't hire anyone because there's just not a pool of applicants? I think that the reasons vary, and I'm not really sure what Governor Hogan did with that department, if he cut funding from it previously to eliminate positions, or can they just not find anyone to hire?
Yeah. I don't know the quantity of positions that he cut from each department, but even if he didn't cut, it's still just too few people to do the job
Yeah.
that's required. Obviously, is what we're getting at. So
Mhm.
yeah, so you would be in favor, for example, of hiring more inspectors and doing more inspections to make sure people are in compliance with these MDE codes.
Yeah, and I believe, I want to believe that people aren't really out to do harm. If we have more people in the field that can help them come into compliance, I see it as a helping too. I mean, right, I don't think most people are looking to dump all their septic waste into the bay. I would hope that's not their intent.
Yeah.
And so maybe they need some technical assistance on how to do and how to fix the problems that they have.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad we agree on that point.
There's
Um,
one we agree on.
well, yeah. Well, I'm a Democrat. I know you're a Republican. I mean, like, I think when it gets to local issues, like stuff like who you vote for on the national scale doesn't really matter that much because we all live in the same community. So like the issues are so up close that we can kind of, we agree that bad things are bad when we both have to experience the blowback of it.
Yeah.
So.
The environment, it's something that I didn't have much knowledge of going into an elected office. But I've definitely gained a lot of knowledge, and I've seen it from so many different perspectives, from agriculture, from watermen, from working with different environmental groups here locally, the Creek Watchers, that I feel like we all want the same thing, right? Like we all want clean water. We don't want to see pollution. We don't want to see that. So how do we move that forward?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, there's so many issues that we have that's polluting our bay. How do we move that forward into some type of resolution? Because we all want the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I just really, I really appreciate you having me on. I did not know what political party you were when you invited me on. And I appreciate you wanting to listen and get to know me and hear my ideas. I think that that's locally, that's where we're at, is we're somewhat have to come together and listen to one another, even if we are not voting straight down the same line. So I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
No, it's very important. Like I said, when issues are this up close, when we live in these communities, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, really. Like I said,
Mhm.
we're all experiencing the blowback of bad policy. You know what I mean? So we should
Mhm.
all work together to make lives better for each other. So I thank you very much for coming on. Can you tell people where to find you at on social media, your website and such?
Absolutely. Nicole Acle, 37B Delegate, or my website is nicoleacle.com. Phone number is 410-251-0122. If you would like to chat, I appreciate every and all citizen input.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Nicole.
Thank you, sir.